Good afternoon. This is the first in one of what I hope will be several tutorials on ways that I do things that you might not see, that I have never been able to really capture well in pictures. I'm sorry, I'm not going to turn it around on myself. I don't like looking at myself on camera, so you're just going to see my hands. Hello. This that I have in front of me is one of my daughter's dresses. She's almost 3 years old, so this is very small, and it shows up really well on camera because you can see everything really easily. This is an Italian gown made in the typical manner of the Italian gowns I make. Now, it's multi-part, and the first two parts on the front are shaped like this. There will be some additional shaping once it's all sewn together, of course, but the two front pieces to the bodice are shaped basically like this, and they match up, as you can see. So there's the front, and this is the back, which is just folded, and it's roughly twice the length along the bottom as the two front parts put together. Now the problem when you're making this kind of gown is you have to put the skirt pleated into the back, and you have to put the front part of the skirt pleated in two halves onto the front, so it would get pleated across here. Now that's pretty straightforward and simple, but what happens when you're trying to cut out the skirt pieces? Do you cut 3 pieces, one to pleat into each part of the front? Or do you only cut 2 pieces? One whole piece for the front and one whole piece for the back. And what happens if you don't want a seam right in the middle of your front skirts? The way I have found to combat this problem of wanting nice pleating in the front but only needing to pleat 2 pieces of fabric into the 3 pieces of the bodice is to do a trick that you're going to see here. So this pin represents how far down from the top of the pleating, which will be about here. Some will get lost inside the bodice once it's pleated. So this will be open to the front, and then below here will be a small amount of fabric that will be pleated but sewn down. This will all become clear, and this is really why it's impossible to show something like this in pictures. So the first step is always simply fold your front rectangle in half and find the middle. Then pin it like this. This is maybe 5 inches down, so I have about 4 inches of opening, and this will correspond to the front opening of the bodice itself. So what you're going to be doing is you're actually going to be using a running stitch. You're going to be putting your thread in here, knotting it to fix it down, and sewing from here roughly to here. So here's the next step with a line of running stitch sewn down. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to clip this edge down to this pin, roughly in half. So you can see now I have clipped that fold down to this pin all the way up to the top of my piece. The next thing to do is to do some turning under and pinning. So the next thing you do is you're going to flatten this that you have clipped onto itself. So you sewed that down, now you flatten it. This is going to create the look of a pleat in the front, but it's actually just a great way to turn under your exposed edges, and then you only get a tiny little tiny little bit that could actually ravel, and you can always sew over that just a little bit to enforce it. And I'll show you how I turn these under in just a second. So here's one side of it turned down. So this is what it was like at first. So you're going to fold it under and fold it under onto itself. And done, it looks like this. So the only thing you'll see from the front is just a little line of stitching, and this will get pleated. So I'll do the other side, and then I'm going to also sew them down, and then I'll show you what it looks like once it's done. So here you can see I have stitched down everything that was turned under. I used a whip stitch just because it's going to hold those edges under, and I caught maybe a little bit of the fabric on the underside. You can barely see any stitching on both sides. So I also tacked it down over top of the folded over parts. That way the pleat kind of holds its shape a little bit better. So this is the back side of what will be the front of the bodice skirt. And if you turn it over, this is what you'll actually see just below the front of the bodice. You see two edges which are finished very cleanly. They're not going to stand out at all when you're wearing the dress. And the cool part about this is that when it's all laid out, and this is what the front will look like. Now, up here will be your bodice, and above this is where it laces together in the front. And you'll have a little bit of opening so that you can lace up your bodice easily. And below it, you'll just have one sort of hidden pleat. And to pleat it into the bodice, you just start making your pleats here, one after another across the top, and you have a nice, clean, one-piece skirt across the front of your Italian gown. And I've never seen the historical evidence for finishing a front this way, but it's simple. It uses simple stitches, and it makes life a lot less complicated when sewing. So please comment below the video and tell me what you think, and if you'd like to see more, hopefully I can have some more for you. Bye!